Well, good morning. Short little video out here today. I'm freezing my rear off out here. It's cold. And I'm going to kick back and relax most of the rest of the day after we get this little video shot and I get it put out there for you guys. When I premiered a video yesterday, we got into a discussion about setting up a standard lathe as a production lathe, or setting it up with a production cross slide, turret tailstock, that type of thing. So, and Logan lathes came up. One of the gentlemen I was discussing this with has a Logan lathe that he's been converting over to a turret lathe, and I'd asked which lathe he had because I was somewhat interested. So he directed me to a video that he had, and we've emailed back and forth a little bit throughout the day yesterday, and I thought I'd kind of show my setup and maybe answer some questions that are out there about these. Now I have a 830 Logan, which is an early production lathe, 10-inch production lathe, and I may have shown it in passing a couple of times in other videos, but we haven't done anything in depth. Now, there again, it's another project that once the shop is done, it will have a place, because there's some things I want to set up on it, and I want to build some accessories for it too as well. You guys have seen my Sheldon lathe that I run as a production lathe part of the time, and that lathe, I've already said in the past, is going to become a dedicated turret lathe or production lathe, just because I now have the other Sheldon once I get it done. And we've watched the videos of my building the Atlas turret lathe. So I thought I'd show this little 830. I've had it stuck away in storage. It is complete. It is functional if I'd reassemble it and clean it up, which isn't that big a deal. You know, it's set out there a couple of days time, and I'll have it back up and running once we get that far. But I plan on building a bar feeder for it. Logan offered a bar feeder for that lathe. The 800 series and the 1800 series, I believe, was the later models of that. And I've seen a couple of them come up for sale over the years. If the guys knew what they actually were, why they wanted way more money than I was willing to give, and they just don't seem to be that common. So I've got the patent drawings for it and everything, so at some point, we'll just start doing some castings and building a bar feeder for it. It's not that difficult a project. It's just a matter of getting around and doing it. But anyway, I thought I'd show you the actual 830. Mine's disassembled, like I say. I've got the motor, the headstock cover off, that type of thing, just because I can store it away. It takes up a little more real estate if everything's assembled on it. So it's just tucked away, and over here in the side shop, it's unheated and showing a little bit of flash rust on it and everything. I was just looking at it, but nothing that won't clean up very quickly. It's not a major thing at all. So let's go over, take a look at it, and I'll tell you what I think I know. So this is the 830 in all its glory, and these earlier machines had the cover that's set over here lifted up, that released your belt tension. When you release it and put the cover back down, why that it tightened your belt tension, so it was ready to run. Standard production cross slide, and the turret tailstock. Now everything's tucked in. Like I say, this is just basically storage. I got the handle undone from the tailstock itself, just so I can get it out of the way more. So anyway, collets on these. This has a collet closer, and it's a hand-operated collet closer. Let's see if I can do this and operate everything at the same time. When we go there, it locks it. Okay, there we're locked into position with the handle back. When we bring it to that position right there, it unlocks the collet. And then when you bring it on forward, why these ears right back here advance your bar feed. So that's advancing your stock. So you've advanced it, and it's got a ratcheting mechanism, a pawl with a ratchet mechanism that advances it forward. Then when you bring the handle back to there, it's moved the pawl back to engage the next one. And then when you come clear to the back, it locks it in place. So you machine your part and go through the whole thing again. So you've unlocked it. Now you've advanced your part. Come back, you've moved your pawl back, and you've relocked it. So that's the operation of that. These they've got some sort of a number that I'm really not familiar with. It's like a AC 50, AC 35, AC45. They got a series of numbers for different size lathes apparently for the callouts that these take. They're a Warner and Swasey #1, and I'll show you one of those when we get back inside. So high and low range. Now, when you compare these to the Atlas machines, this in most ways is a far superior machine. It's got quite a bit more substantial castings. It's quite a bit heavier duty, a lot more positive. Now, the one downside to it that I consider a real limiting factor is the flat belt on them. If the motor and countershaft assembly are all aligned correctly and positioned right, tensions right to start with, they work fine. Now this machine has the motor and the countershaft assembly is mounted on a third leg that stands down behind the machine, and it bolts on with just a couple of bolts that have got looks like some vibration dampeners in them where they adjust to the machine itself. If those are all aligned properly, why, it works really good. If they're not properly aligned and not tensioned, it has a tendency to throw belts. You start putting a little bit of tension on it and it'll throw the belt. Now what will eventually happen to this machine, if you can see there's another flat belt there, and I don't know if I've got one from the motor assembly. I have seen a south bend that's been converted to a timing style belt with the ribbed grooves in them. And my plan is to take and convert this to one of those ribbed belts, and that will eliminate all that problem of throwing belts and give quite a bit more positive transmission. So I think that will turn this into a very, very capable machine. So anyway, there's a little bit of an overview. Let's go back in. I'll show you the collets that I've got for it, and we can talk about tooling just a little bit. All right, this is a little bit of a selection of tooling that I've got, but these are the collets that it takes, and it's a #1 Warner and Swasey. This just happens to be one that I grabbed out of here. Now, and they go to 5/8 of an inch. I think they're 1/8 to 5/8, whatever the smallest is, up to 5/8, and I've got a little bit of a selection here. Now you also look, and I've got some of these Brown and Sharp tool holders, and they're, these are what you normally find used when we're looking at this stuff out on the auction sites. And I normally will set these up with interchangeable tools. And this one, of course, doesn't want to come out, but it's got the insert that I bored for this particular size drill bit, and we set them in here. Now, the downside to a lot of this tooling like this that you find is, while it works fine on a screw machine, and that's what they've designed them for, when we put them on our smaller machines like the Atlas or even this Logan, that takes up a lot of real estate there. When you compare them to the ones that I've built, if I can get my hands in here, when we compare them to that way, size-wise, there's a big difference. So, these are still, even this style tooling or this size tooling, when we start loading a 6-position turret with them, why, that takes up a fair amount of space, and you have to be aware of where what position you've got them in and how you've angled them and that type of thing. Where if you try and run them straight across, there's a big difference there in width. So that's something to be aware of. So when you try and put this bigger tooling in, there's a big difference in how much real estate it takes up. And when we compare them to some of these other holders, a lot of them will have long shanks. And the advantage to all of this tooling is this is, for the most part, 3/4 inch tooling. I've got a little bit of 5/8 tooling in here that I have adapters for to be able to use them. But for the most part, it's all 3/4 inch tooling, and both the Atlas and the Logan turrets take that 3/4 inch tooling. So for me, that's a big advantage. But here again, here's another standard Brown and Sharp holder, and look how long the shank is. So you're sticking out there another inch beyond what the turret will actually, when you bottom that out in the turret, well, you've got about another inch sticking out of there. So that's something else to be aware of. Your space is very definitely limited on how much real estate you've got when you start loading turrets up, because you've only got, I think on the Atlas, on the tailstock turret, there's at the maximum you've only got 3.5 inches of travel. The Logan, I think, is probably about that. So you have to figure out what position you've got them in to where you can retract them far enough to where you can rotate to the next position without fouling on either your cross-slide tool posts and you have to have them positioned to where they'll fit between your tool posts. So you've got to have those cross-slide tool posts set far enough apart if you can to be able to have everything clear and keep from fouling in itself. So, and that's part of the problem. Now here's a box tool, and I don't actually use this box tool because look how much shank we've got in here. And by the time we stick that out there, what is that, another 2.5 inches? 2 inches. A little over 2 inches, 2.25. By the time we add that, and then we've got, an extra inch of shank that will not fit in there. We've extended that tool out 3 inches from the tailstock turret. That's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of meat sticking out there. So at some point, this one will get modified slightly. We'll probably turn down this shank and add in move the shank forward. We'll do something with it, but make it to where that's a functional tool. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of information about trying to set up turret tooling. If you're trying to put those big tools in, adapt them into a lathe tool holder or something like that, well, you're not going to get the versatility of a true turret lathe. I'm by no means an expert on this. Like everything else I do, I'm learning along the way. We're trying to figure out what our path is along here as we go. But that's been my experience with turret lathe tooling so far. If you can get them tucked back into a turret and, to where they're compact and will fit, don't have to hang out any farther than they have to, and still give you the travel you need, that's going to work for you. Same way with your cross slides. You need to set them apart as far as you can and still get them to do the job, and hopefully you can make everything fit. The old timers managed to get them to fit in there to do the job, so we should be able to figure it out too. So anyway, quick little update. Thanks for taking the time to watch, guys. Enjoy your Sunday.